Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Ukraine latest, Zelenskyy warns of horror in Borodyanka. Russia admits significant casualties. Some Ukrainians return to Kyiv. Reports of alleged war crimes have continued to come out of Ukraine after Russian troops withdrew from areas around the capital Kyiv. With Russian forces expected to mount a renewed offensive into the disputed eastern region of Donbas soon, Moscow acknowledged for the first time that it had suffered significant casualties in the war so far. Some residents are also returning to Kyiv as authorities continue to document alleged atrocities nearby. Here is the latest on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Read more on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Borodyanka more dreadful than Bucha. Zelenskyy says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said the situation in the town of Borodyanka near the capital Kyiv was significantly more dreadful than in nearby Bucha, where the suspected deliberate killing of civilians by Russian forces has been broadly condemned. The work to clear the rubble in Borodyanka has begun. It is significantly more dreadful there. Even more victims from the Russian occupiers, Mr Zelenskyy said in a video statement. He did not provide any further detail or evidence that Russia was responsible for civilian deaths in the town. And what will happen when the world learns the whole truth about what the Russian military did in Mariupol? Mr Zelenskyy added. There, on almost every street, is what the world saw in Bucha and other towns in the Kyiv region after the withdrawal of Russian troops. Local officials said more than 300 people were killed by Russian forces in Bucha, 35 kilometres northwest of Kyiv, and around 50 of them were executed. Moscow has denied targeting civilians and says images of dead civilians have been staged by the Ukrainian government to justify more sanctions against Moscow and derail peace negotiations. Some locals returned to Kyiv. Some Ukrainians have returned to Kyiv after Russian troops withdrew from the outskirts of the city, but officials have warned people not to return to the capital just yet, fearful of a renewed Russian offensive. For several of those arriving at the busy main train station in central Kyiv on Thursday, the desire to see elderly parents or to continue their jobs outweighed any safety concerns. Some workers returned without their families, leaving wives and children in the relative safety of western Ukraine. Others were making a quick dash to pick up more of their belongings and cars before heading out again. There were more signs of something more akin to normal life returning to Kyiv. Some played chess in the park as an air raid siren sounded. Joggers headed out for their morning runs. Women walked together with their dogs, and church bells summoned believers to a morning service. A few said they had returned to stay, at least for now. Meanwhile, residents in nearby villages have assessed the damage caused to their homes. Europe correspondent Isabella Higgins sent this report from the badly damaged village of Andriivka. Space to play or pause, M to mute, left and right arrows to seek, up and down arrows for volume. Russia laments huge tragedy of troop deaths. Russia has given the most sombre assessment so far of its invasion of Ukraine, describing the tragedy of mounting troop losses and the economic hit from sanctions. Read more. Ukrainians are being evacuated from eastern cities before an anticipated major Russian offensive there. Moscow has previously acknowledged its attack has not progressed as quickly as it wanted, but Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov's latest comments went further than that. We have significant losses of troops, he told Sky News. It is a huge tragedy for us. Russia is facing its most difficult economic situation for 3 decades due to unprecedented Western sanctions, Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin said. The U.S. Congress removed its most favored nation trade status in a further blow to Russia. On the battlefield, Ukrainian authorities said Russian troops were regrouping to try to gain full control over the eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, which have been partly held by Russian-backed separatists since 2014. UN suspends Russia from top human rights body. The UN General Assembly has voted to suspend Russia from the UN Human Rights Council over allegations of horrific rights violations by Russian soldiers in Ukraine, which many countries have described as war crimes. It is a rare move, given Russia is one of the 5 veto-wielding members of the UN Security Council. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield called the vote a historic moment, telling the Assembly, "We have collectively sent a strong message that the suffering of victims and survivors will not be ignored, and that Russia must be held accountable for this unprovoked, unjust, unconscionable war." Read more. Russia's Deputy Ambassador Gennady Kuzmin said Russia had already withdrawn from the Council before the Assembly.